and the Sauce Show. And today we're talking the SEC Conference Preview 2019 right now. What up, though? Right back at you. I bet y'all thought we was going to forget about y'all since the season started with the SEC preview. But no, we saving some of the best for last. We giving you a better test of the market after we done seen a game or so. And we coming with the preview for the SEC. And right now, we're going to move over to the east side of the SEC. Okay? And we're going to start with Georgia. But before we do that, I must formally introduce the Sauce himself. What's up, Sauce? Tell the people what's going on.
Hey, brother, how we doing today? I know we're dodging some wind down here right now, but we don't have the brunt of the storm. But the storm is coming, but before the storm comes, we're gonna put the storm back on you guys with these SEC breakdowns.
Absolutely, and we're gonna slow it down just like the storm is doing. 1 mile per hour, and we're gonna make a clean sweep through all these college football games for as long as we can until the storm hits us. So we're gonna ride this one out right here on the Boss and the Sauce Show. And yo, if you want to see the Boss and Sauce weekly picks, weekly information, analysts, and just a bunch of other talk that we go through about this college football season, join us on the Boss and the Sauce Show every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 9 p.m. Eastern, and you get us live and direct right there. How did you feel about last week's show on the Boss and the Sauce?
I liked it, man. It was nice. We did the Boss and the Sauce Thursday, then we also do the Hangouts, the Who-Bangin Sports Talk Hangout on Friday evening, same time, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, 9 East. I gotta always get them mixed up, man. But yeah, that's a lot of fun too. We're bringing on guests every week. We're gonna bring in 2 guests every week. People people you don't know, and it's gonna be a real nice look going forward.
Absolutely, man. And just so you know, BigRagoo, I had to put the Who-Bangin Sports Talk on that show, even though it's like the Boss and the Sauce.
Oh, yeah.
But we got to bring some people to the channel because this Friday show is going to continue on from sport to sport. It's probably where you catch us for some of our horse racing, all that different stuff. So,
basketball.
Yeah, it's the Who-Bangin Sports Lounge, but right now it's really the Boss and the Sauce Lounge with a bunch of our friends, and after the Boss and the Sauce is over, Wham's gonna take over with Wham Talk. We're gonna be right back at you with horse racing. So
it's gonna be a growing thing.
It's gonna be a fun place to be on a Friday, and that's all I want it to be. Just a fun place to be. Like you said, meet some new faces, and learn some new angles, some fun stuff. So make sure y'all come join us on that. Man.
Keeping it real.
Keeping it real. Now, let's just bounce right into it, man, because the season already started. SEC Conference Preview 2019. Georgia. Take us away, BigRagoo.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs. We're going to bring them on board first. They were the SEC from the East, the top dog, no pun intended, top dog in the East. Head coach Kirby Smart has built a heck of a program there since leaving Bama. Last year, they started out pretty quick, and they kept the ball rolling. They were 7-1 in the SEC, and they took a bowl loss to Texas after that disappointment not getting to the championship game. But, anyways, a lot of good looks going on with Georgia. Now, Georgia's becoming a heck of a recruiting grounds on the collegiate level. They're a top 3 class the last 3 years, and a ton of talent to work with. They got quarterback Jake Fromm is going to get the starts. From here on out, he's the man. So no more Justin Fields. Now he went to Ohio State. They get running back DeAndre Swift. He's a junior. The run and pass, he's catching the ball in the backfield. He's the number 1 rusher in the SEC. Number 1. Georgia's the number 1 rushing offense in the SEC. Number 2 in scoring with 38 points a game. They're rushing for 239 yards a game. And the overall improvement in the conference, they were prior to looking to this year, they were with the new offensive coordinator, James Coley, who's promoted up in the ranks. But, they were 76 nationally last year, which I kind of didn't think they were that low. On the defensive side, they're ranked second in conference. They're giving up 313 yards a game, and they were ranked 13th nationally. Almost the same ranks against the pass, too. Not bad, but against the run, there's going to be room for improvement this year. So I look for that to happen. We'll bringing Cooley up. And they were ranked 31st nationally. The defensive line will be young also. And they do have some returners coming back, 7 on defense. And the key game is going to be key game for them is going to be Notre Dame outside the conference when they play them September 21st. Your alma mater, your stomping grounds, Notre Dame. What do you think about this team so far? What do you look you got on them?
This is like a catch-22 right here. I talk a lot about fourth-year coaches right here, and this guy is right here in the right spot. He got his quarterback with him. He got a nice group of returners. All systems go. This is a part of college football that I like, is when a plan come together, and right here it all comes together for him. Like I said, quarterback, defense, defensive line, like it's all over. Last year he went 11-3. He had some tough losses, but on another note, this is the team that they keep saying every year. This is going to be the team to beat Alabama. And I just ain't seen it yet. And I don't know what it is about this team. They're not very fancy dancy. They kind of resemble Alabama's style of offense, but with a little Georgia flair to it a little bit, I guess you could say. But this team right here, I like this team. And then they got to play my team. And my team's tough, man. We y'all ain't seen us yet, but when we come out today, we're going to show y'all what we're working with. I think a lot of the people are going to switch up what they think about Notre Dame after we give them a sample today. We got some exciting things going over there, but this is going to be a big game for both sides right here. But probably be when we see them, it's probably going to be a little tougher for them than us because we used to playing in all different, aspects of college football, the SEC, ACC. We've been around to these big games, and that'll be the upper hand that we'll have preparation. But they definitely got the athletes over there, and they got the coaching and what they need. So I don't know, man. I'm going to tie my hands behind my back and put some tape over my mouth and just try to sit down and enjoy the game because it wouldn't be an exciting point for me. But it is going to be a pillar of Georgia's season to get past Notre Dame. And that's probably what I'll probably do. I'll probably take Georgia. And, if my team wins and I lose money, then that's fine. But, if my team loses and I win money, that's great. But this team is definitely, in a real improvement year. Like last year, they had them tied up to beat Alabama, and they came close. And this year, maybe the team, like I'm waiting to see that one team that's going to do it. But this Alabama team, we already talked about it, has a chip on their shoulder, so it could be tough. But Jake Fromm, premier quarterback, if he does well, could be a Heisman candidate or something here. So
he'll be starting for a long time to come. He's only a sophomore too. Remember that last year he was a freshman, split time with Justin Field. Now, like you said, gone to Ohio State. So the thing about this team is they play Vanderbilt already. That's the conference game, and they kind of took like a reverse schedule. They play Murray State, Arkansas State, then they got to play the Fighting Irish on the 21st. Then they play Tennessee, which is a down year. South Carolina, questionable. Kentucky. So realistically, for an SEC schedule, the toughest teams they're going to play is probably going to be Florida, and then A&M late in the season. And they do play Auburn at Auburn, late middle part of November. So it's not the toughest of all SEC schedules, but it's a very doable schedule. That a lot of the pundits have got them picked like number one in the SEC East, and they got them 8-0 in the SEC play. So they're not giving Florida respect. They're not giving Auburn the respect, and they're definitely not giving A&M the respect. So those are 3 games that they can come against and possibly lose. Not all of them, but, they might get upset in one of those games. I wouldn't just go ahead and walk them in as an undefeated SEC East team.
Yeah, who else they don't give respect? Notre Dame. Because this schedule right here that they have is designed to beat Notre Dame. They
Right.
playing all these soft people right before us, and guess what happens after they play Notre Dame? They get a bye week, BigRagoo. That's because, like I said, this whole channel of events is to beat Notre Dame, because playing against a team like Notre Dame on that level of just on that level of viewership on the game is a big for this Georgia team. And this may be beating Notre Dame may be what they need to get past Alabama, because it just when you're talking media and you're talking, coverage and all that kind of stuff on the game, you're talking these are 19, 20, 22, 23-year-old kids, and that type of stuff plays its part even on the field, because football is a game, you don't do well if you don't play it with some enthusiasm and some confidence. So all that being said, their schedule is designed to beat Notre Dame. This may help them. But like you said, because they've stacked it up this way, they may find themselves, exhausted or something and play one of these other teams. But they also one of these teams, too, that have 2 bye weeks. So many teams this year are going to be getting 2 bye weeks in college football. This is one. Now
that's a good point. Great point.
They bye week right after Notre Dame. They play at Tennessee. They play South Carolina. They play Kentucky, who Kentucky could have been a major contender looking at how Kentucky played last year. And guess what they do after they play Kentucky? They take another bye. They come back off the bye and they play Florida. That helps. Then they get a down week. They play Missouri. That helps. Then they're going to get a beat-up Auburn team at Auburn. If you look at Auburn's schedule, which we already reviewed, they're going to have it tough around those late weeks. And then they're going to finish the season probably with a banged-up Texas A&M and a for-sure win against Georgia Tech, all to be set up to beat Alabama. So I'm looking forward to seeing if the method works. Now, if they, I'm a Notre Dame fan, and if they beat us, so be it. We like to play the tough competition. If we get beat by Georgia, I want them to be the team that beat Alabama. I want to be beat by the best if I have to take a beating. So I guess I'm going to have to say that I'm all for Georgia in this one. They got it all lined up. I'd say take them as much as possible and frequently. They'll probably cover too.
Yeah, that's a good analyzation of the breakdown of the schedule, because a lot of times we look at teams for what they are, and we don't really tear the schedules apart to look at them long term. And that's a great way to look at this team going forward, because if they got to get to the national championship or national spotlight to get in the playoffs, Notre Dame, they were there last year, so if they can't beat them getting out of the gate, not necessarily getting out of the gate, but getting to them to get to the other teams and get into the conference play, that's going to be a good look going forward for them, how they're going to measure up.
Exactly. And, being that I've always been a Notre Dame fan, scheduling has always been our only defense, so I'm deep in the scheduling. As we talked about it before, teams that don't play good competition, I shy down on that. And, these athletic directors, they schedule this stuff sometimes 2-3 years out. So they know exactly what they're doing. 4th-year coach juiced the schedule up for winning. So I commend what they're doing over there at Georgia. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what do you say we move on to the next team?
Oh, let's jump on into it. So, this side of the conference over here is full of them. So we jumping right over into Florida this time, for which we got a really good look at Florida. They played on prime time, first big game of the year. What you think about Florida?
Yeah, Florida, they bring a lot of different looks, and, they recruit well. Mullen, head coach Dan Mullen, what is he in his second year? Second year. Last year was his first year. And he took they took big strides, a lot of suppliers, a lot of people with, how they got Felipe Franks to perform now. That tough game they played at Miami, that was a bruiser type of game. The defense played solid. They went after the quarterback, offensively speaking, they did make some mistakes last week. Excuse me. They had some miscues on offense, and I guess they're going to work through those. But they take on they play Tennessee Martin, so that's a real soft game for them this week coming up. But schedule wise, they're looking at Tennessee and then Auburn or then Townsend State, which is another softie, and then Auburn. So they got a very favorable schedule too till they get to the middle part of the schedule, like late mid-October forward. Then going forward, um, that's why the East always has tough against the West, because the East drops off pretty quick. We talked about that too, how some of these conferences at the top are real thin, and then they get real weak towards the bottom. And not that you hear a lot about the SEC and the toughest conference in all of football, but I'm not gonna boast for the SEC. I'm gonna say they do play tough teams. They do have tough teams overall, but through and through, I don't think they're the toughest conference. I'm going to go on record saying that. Okay. All right. So now the Gators do have a lot of weapons, though. I mean, they're loaded at wideouts. Junior Kadarius Town, he's a heck of a player. Van Johnson, speedy guy. Trayvon Grimes, a junior. Then look at the running back position. L'Amico Perrine, he's just under 1,000-yard rusher last year. He's going to have a solid season. And then the O-line has a lot of gaps to fill. That's probably going to be their weakest point. And I think that showed up in the last game against Miami last week. They did have some struggles there. And this offense, they ranked 5th last year in the SEC as a whole. But, they do score points, and Dan Mullen is the contributor factor there in his style of offense. Now, defensively, this team was ranked number 1 in the turnover bracket. So they got some ball hawkers on the squad. So they're not ranked number 1 overall, but on the turnover margin, they were ranked number 1. Okay. And they're running a new aggressive 3-4, and they have 7 starters coming back, and they look like they're loaded with reserves too. So I look for a lot of good key players for the Gators. Some tough off battles, even though, like I say, they start out, with the Miami, which was a tough game to kind of set them up to get to Auburn, because Tennessee's going to be down. Townsend State's not a big deal. So probably their toughest game coming up is going to be Kentucky, in September 14th, a week from this coming week. And then they go down and they got to play Auburn in October. So that being said, Mullen in his second year out, and Mullins is the 3rd coach in FBS history to take a Power 5 team and win 10 games and that won less than 5 games the prior year. So he's only the 3rd coach to ever do that, to win 10 games after only winning less than 5 games. There's only been 3 other coaches. I mean, he's the 3rd coach to ever do that. So kudos to Mullen. I like the way he coaches. He's a talented coach, and look for the Gators to get on the improve this year moving forward. What do you think?
Absolutely. Well, I say I'm going to have an interesting view on this one, and I think that there were a lot of things that were questionable for Florida. Like if we would have did this preview prior to this first game, we would have been looking at the question marks at quarterback, if that was going to work out for them. We knew they were coming with some running, with some wide receivers. We would have had questions at the offensive line position. We definitely always got questions on defense. There would have been a lot of questions that we could have lingered and talked on. But after reviewing the first game, we got all those questions out in one game. And one thing I must say about this Florida, I got to commend them a little bit, even though I think overall Miami played a better game. I think Miami just haven't developed enough on offense to win that game. But Florida definitely came out first, strong as they should. They met with a little bit of adversity. They adjusted, but they made a lot of mistakes in the game. It looked like a really bad game as far as like the turnovers and some of the stuff that happened. But if you look at that from a coaching standpoint, then you're looking at we got all of our stuff out. We got that, that worried about interception. We did that. We were able to, rehearse that. We were able to lock over not doing that down. So I think at the end of the day, Florida got a lot accomplished with that game and squeaked away with the win. So that was really, really good for Florida. And I'm like you. I'm up on Florida. They lost 3 games last year. Maybe they lose 2 this year, bring it down a little bit. If they get in the scene against Alabama, though, it's not going to be nothing nice against Alabama, because, and reason being is because in the first game, they also show you that they could struggle passing, and that they could struggle on defense, and they show that they have some weak points. But being that it's the beginning of the season for them on their organization side, it gives them time to start working on some of their mistakes. They got another little easy game that they could polish it up some more. They got a couple other games that it could be tested and polished up some more. And by the time they reach Auburn, the game that they need, they'll probably look like a whole different squad than we seen that first game. And that was in a victory. So all for the Gators right here. Not one of my favorite college teams, but hey.
Me neither. They're right up the street from where I'm at. I mean, they got to play Auburn, like you said, and then that's going to be a tough spot. And then right after that, they got to face a dynamite LSU team. So 2 tough games back to back. If they come out of that Auburn game unscathed, then they got to take on LSU like right away, and that's at LSU. And if that's a night game, I don't know if I'm sure you've watched those type of games where LSU is a real tough place to play at nighttime. Death Valley and under the lights, that's a real tough look for them. So mainly their whole season hinges upon, playing LSU. I mean, talking about getting into the big spotlight. They got to beat an LSU team, and they got to beat Georgia at the biggest cocktail party up in Jacksonville, where they play every year, like the first week in November. Those are the 2 key games for them to maintain them in the national spotlight.
That's what's up, man. I think we did more than a mouthful on Florida. You ready to bounce over to the next team?
Yeah, let's bounce on over.
Let's go on over, and this time we draw Missouri. Now, Missouri's another one of those teams for me that I never can really get a good grasp of what they're doing over there. To me, they kind of bounce around from year to year. They don't have no true definition. Are they an offensive threat, a defensive thing? And their numbers are, pretty consistent. Last year, they averaged 36 points a game on offense. They gave up 25.5 points a game on defense. So, I guess you would say a team like Missouri usually comes out pretty balanced. Now, being that my guy Phil Steele has them number 3 over here on this side of the conference, that says a lot to me. That means I need to keep my eyes open and watch what's going on over there. But in this one right here, they get 7 back on offense, 6 on defense. That's a pretty tough thing right here. And here we go again. We talked about it not too long ago. 4th-year coach right here, got his recruits in there. Everybody's in place where they need to be, but still questions at quarterback as they bring in a senior quarterback with no experience at this squad, but he's a transfer coming over from is he come over from Clemson?
Yeah, Kelly Stewart.
Yeah,
Kelly Bryant. Kelly Bryant. Yeah, senior transfer. He had to sit out last year. Correct.
So that's a big question mark as well. Like, what are we gonna get out of that? But if we look at this past week and all the transfer quarterbacks, they pretty much did well across the board. Especially the ones I hated on. Jalen did nice, even though he talked himself down at the end of the game, talking about how bad they didn't do. The guy had like 6 touchdowns, 100, almost 200 yards rushing. He had incredible stats, and he dubbed himself down at the end for the sake of the team. But, his dad's a coach, so he's programmed to work that way. But I saw some flaws in this game. I don't think he'll be able to he won't be able to run over the field over every team like that. And he's going to have to get back there at some point in time and really throw that ball. He really didn't throw that ball nowhere deep. I mean, he caught the one deep pass, but it was a blown coverage. But most of the time, he's just like the guy over there at Alabama, the Hawaiian, whatever you call him.
Flying Hawaiian.
The Flying Hawaiian, yeah. They just throw outs, ins. They pop the tight end over the middle now and then. I mean, these are like 10, 15-yard passes. And then, I can't really give you props for throwing a long pass if you're running outside the pocket because you can see everything move. But the real quarterbacks can stand in there and really throw the ball. And when it was time to do that, they really didn't do a good job of it. The few shots that they did take, they didn't do a good job. But they did really well. Jalen did really well running the ball and all that good stuff. But So we got a big question right here with Missouri and the quarterback. But if it follows the trends of things, this guy coming over from Clemson, because he was supposed to be hot stuff over there, he should do really well over here. So we'll be able to take a look at that. And
no
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing with the Clemson. I mean, with the Mizzou squad. I mean, they had a 4-year starter and Drew Lock. You know, he's an NFL quarterback now. He was a drafted. He left. He's a 4-year starter for this team. So he's going to be hard to replace. But they do have the ringer, like you said, and Kelly Bryant. You know, the Clemson, the guy that bolted Clemson to the transfer. Now he should get some decent talent to distribute the ball to. They got a pretty good running back, Larry Roundtree. He's a 1,200-yard rusher, right? Mm-hmm. And they got a good slot receivers, John Johnson. He's a graduate transfer. And they get Jonathan Nance, who comes over from Arkansas, a graduate transfer. So he's a junior, so look for them to pass the ball around. So it's going to be a new look on offense for him. It's a very balanced squad overall. Like you say, Phil Steele gives them some good props for what they got going on. On the defensive side, it's going to be a mixed bag on D. It's a D that ranked 108, okay, overall. So, and 112 against the pass. So they got some offensive or defensive struggles there. The defensive end position is going to be in questions. They get a JUCO transfer, Chris Turner, who spent some time at LSU. So that might, give him a little bit of support there. Now the bright spot on this team is a middle linebacker, Cale Garrett. He's a senior. He's got 264 tackles in his career, and the secondary is a veteran group, a senior and a junior. Last year they were ranked 31st nationally. So, and the secondary is pretty decent. They're going to shore up the middle linebacker cores a little bit. So, and they're definitely going to need that help against the pass. So I don't think it's a stout passing group, but it's an experienced passing group. So hopefully they get the area to improve there. So the schedule may help this team because it might help them win some games because their schedule, like we said, Phil Steele's looking at them ranked 3rd, and they got Wyoming last week. They get a depleted West Virginia team this week. They take on Southeast Missouri State the following week, and then they go. They get South Carolina at home, and then they get Troy after that, and then a depleted Ole Miss squad on defense. So they get Vandy. So they got some games that they could win. They could be looking at maybe a one-loss season going into Kentucky, and that's late in October. So they got a very favorable schedule. And a pretty decent offense, with a new look offense, and the defense, needs to improve a little bit. So the schedule is into their favor. So we talk about looking at the schedule, right? Last time we talked at Florida, Georgia, looking at their schedule. So here's another case of a favorable schedule for a team in the SEC.
Yeah. Now this now let's not look past this game we had last week where Wyoming did beat Mizzou. At Wyoming, though. So I'm going to tell you, from the Mountain West, where I do it the best, it's rough to play at Wyoming. You got altitude things, and also this Wyoming team is an uncharacterable, physical team. They're very, very, very physical. And if you're not ready to come up there and play under the elements and play a physical game, which Mizzou did compete. They did, do some positive things on offense and defense, but I'm not going to hold the loss against them in this Wyoming game because it's the first game of the season, the elements, and also Wyoming being such a physical team. Because I don't look at Wyoming as being such a great team because they beat them. So they beat them in their elements, and that's what the biggest thing is right here. But let's hope that the line setters, look at last week's loss as something bad. I know next game is West Virginia.
Yeah, that home West Virginia.
So next game we could get a blurred line right here, and might be if we get some plus money with if we get some plus points with Missouri, might be a spot for us to take them because they're not a bad squad. They didn't really do nothing bad in playing. They just kind of got beat physically, and the elements took a heat of them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like I say, it's a not an upstart offense, but a new look offense for him. It's hard to replace a 4-year starter, an NFL bound 4-year starter at that. So, and they do have some nice pieces on the offense to work with. And like you said, tough game on the road against an underrated team, possibly, like you said, in the element. So it's not that they got caught with their pants down. It's just a new look team for them, and then it's a learning experience. So chalk that one up as a learning experience for this squad.
Absolutely. That's just like we talked about Florida. Florida happened to get some kinks out of theirs and walk away with the win. Here's a team that didn't get a chance to walk away with the win on that one.
Yeah.
But you heard it first right here on the Boss and the Sauce, y'all. Make sure you hit the subscribe, the notify, like the show. Hey, leave a comment. I love the comments. Leave a comment. We always reply back. We appreciate all our new subscribers. And let's keep the show rolling and move over into the next team.
Who we got? Carolina next Gamecocks? Team. South Carolina?
Absolutely. And that's another team who didn't do too well this weekend. I didn't get a chance to watch the game. But, it's always low-key beef when you got a SEC team versus the ACC team.
That's a team that went on the road and lost last week against an old GOAT. What's the guy's name that used to sit in the booth and used to be the coach at Texas? And he's returning to his alma mater as a coach. North Carolina, they beat Mac Brown. They lost to Mac Brown last week.
Right.
But anyways, we'll break it down. Go ahead and lead it off for us, my man, if you want to.
South Carolina Gamecocks right here. They getting back 6 on offense, 5 on defense. Will Muschamp, great coach right here. Not much you can say about that. And he reaches the 4-year mark right here, I believe, right?
Yeah, this 4th year, correct.
And that's money in the bucket when it gets to that 4th year. But I didn't get a chance to watch the tape of their game. Could have been another one of those things like we just talked about with the team before this one. Is that just one of those spots where you go try to get out all your kinks and you walk away with a loss. Because when I capped North Carolina, I didn't see much coming out of North Carolina to be a shocking winner like that.
No, it's supposed to be a win. It was supposed to be a win for the Gamecocks, but they didn't get the job done. Turnovers plagued them in that game. I watched a little bit about that game. I watched a little of that game. Turnovers, and he threw a late turnover late in the game, trying to pull out the win and turned it over. So not a good look there. But like you said, they got caught with their pants down, so to speak. They just didn't execute when they had the game on the line and cost them the game.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to get their act together fast because they play Charleston Southern, and then right after that they play Alabama at home. So they already been struck once. The odds against them to be struck twice, and then they still have to see Georgia, Florida, Kentucky could be tough, and that's back to back. Kentucky, Georgia, and Florida. Now they do get to play a few of these games at home. They only have looks like 4 road games for the season left, so they do get a lot of home love, which could be monumental. But that's not necessarily meaning that every team plays good at home, but could be an angle that could help them out in the long run. But they got to get their act together quick. They played a small school. We'll probably never get a line good enough to take on that game. And then they're going to bounce back and play Alabama. I don't see much. Like we said, in the SEC, as you start going further down the line, it's like an open and shut case. And they've already shown a team like North Carolina, whose North Carolina football program is I wouldn't say really struggling, but they're going through their woes. That win for them was huge, and could lead them to some more wins this season. But South Carolina Gamecocks, not the Gamecocks we used to know in the past.
No, they've got some struggles. I mean, this team here on the defensive side of the ball, they have their struggles stopping the run. That's been a big issue for them, and they're allowing like 27 points a game, which is like in the SEC that's like rank 11th, and nationally it's like not too bad nationally, but SEC wise, they're giving up 27, and it's like rank 11th, like I said. And against the run, Against the pass, they're ranked ninth, and overall they're ranked 12th. So not a real solid look there for them on the defense. Offensively speaking, like I just told you, Jake Brentley, who's a senior quarterback, he had 54 TDs versus 30 interceptions. Not stellar, right? It's a lot
Yeah.
of picks, and they're getting about 30 points a game on average, passing for like 270 yards. They lose their top receiver, Debo Samuels, and he was a wide receiver / kick return specialist who wound up going to the NFL. So, and then stepping up is Brian Edwards, who's averaging like 14 yards a catch, which is not bad, but and the running game needs a little help. Average about 150 yards a game there, and and like I say, they're scoring about 30 points a game, which is ninth in conference. So, like you say, it just kind of steps off real deep when you get above past those top two teams, and they're just like a mediocre squad. Now, the thing about Muschamp, it is his fourth year, like you said, and he has a winning record. He's 22-17 at Carolina, and it's 50-38 overall. But I got a funny feeling inside that if this coach doesn't get the job done this year, if he doesn't produce a winning season, this might be his last year up in the Carolinas.
Hey, you know how it goes, and this is the development right here. If his players didn't put it in place, but see, being a Notre Dame fan and going through the coaching woes, it's a sad situation because once you take all that time to develop a coach with players for his system, and it all comes together. If you go right back to doing that again, you're gonna get the same results. You're gonna have a bunch of players not recruited to play in a system that have to adapt. It's going to take 2 more years to rebuild that, so it just becomes, a waterfall of problems when you do it like that. But South Carolina Game 5's off to the wrong start. That's all I can say for them right now.
Yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. This team. You got anything else you want to bring up about them?
That's about it. Let's keep the show rolling. We got about 3 left. Let's jump right over into Tennessee.
Okay.
Now, I did have a chance to watch a little bit of this Tennessee team right here last week. Now, here we go right back to the same story. Bottom of the SEC, another team, decent football legacy, and the program's it's just down right now, and they took a rough one out there with Georgia State, and it was a good experience for them. They got a little offense over there. They got a little defense. I can't really put it together what the real issue is at Tennessee. You got a little more insight on Tennessee, BigRagoo?
Yeah. They do. They do get a second. This is a second-year coach for Jim Chaney, who used to coach over at Georgia in the Georgia ranks. Not a bad looking guy over there for offense, but that's their biggest issue is the offense. They were dead last in the SEC in offense. They were only getting like 22 points a game, which is next to last, but rushing wise and total offense, they were like dead last. And it starts with the O-line is their big issue. It's in rebuild mode for sure. They didn't win. They did wind up with a top 15 recruit in class, so they recruited very well. They got some decent looking, very highly touted freshmen coming in. They're going to be real, real young. They do have their issues, but they do bring back 8 and 7, 8 on offense, 7 on defense. So that's a good look. And they got they got wide receivers. They're talented there. They tight end. They got a senior tight end. They got a junior quarterback. Jarrett Garantano is supposed to be a pretty good little quarterback, and they got a junior running back. So overall, the offensively speaking, they do have the talent there, but it's a matter of just buying into the system like we talked about in college. Second-year coach. Last year, rebuild. Now this year, maybe they could take a little step forward. They did get caught with their pants down against Georgia State. They got BYU coming in this week, and then they got 3 home games. Georgia State's in L, BYU this week, Chattanooga. Then they got to go on the road and play Florida for the 4th game. So I don't think they expected probably to lose this game to Georgia State, probably to get them ready to take on a tough BYU squad. So that's who they got this week BYU. On the defensive side, gets a little slightly better here for them. Even though they're not the creme de la creme, they like 28 points a game, and scoring wise and passing wise, overall they're ranked right towards the bottom third. They're like ranked ninth and eighth on those numbers. But they're averaging 28 points a game roughly against them on the defense. So they got a lot of second-year players here, a lot of room for growth, and it's a rebuild mode. This team is definitely rebuilt.
Well, they gave up 38 to this Georgia State team, but they did score 30 points on offense. So I don't know if the look gives them any hope on the offense for the season, or if Georgia State, I can't really tell if Georgia State is really that good or Tennessee really got outplayed. I guess we have to. The BYU game should be a better out-of-conference look to see if Tennessee's really holding it together or not. For the BYU Utah game, BYU is missing a lot of tackles, missing a lot of fundamentals. So should be a chance for Tennessee to exploit that if they are in a position to do better this year on offense. But we might be lacking on the team on defense, being that such a small team like Georgia State scored 38 points on them. The hole could be in the back of the boat instead of the front of the boat. So I don't know. It might just be a trade of problems overall. If anything, though, if I was looking into it to find a bet on the BYU game, I would probably lean towards the over because of the fundamental issues I've seen with BYU. And then you got another defense that's known for giving up points that may be working better. So might got a good look at an over coming up with this Tennessee team. I'm pretty sure it's not a number on it yet, but
if they don't get it together on offense, you're going to be looking at a lot of 3 and outs for this team, and then what happens in that case with the defense? They just get slap wore out. And it's not a good look going forward. I mean, like you say, BYU had their miscues, so I think realistically they were trying to figure on the schedule to kind of get these 3 tough, maybe kind of open up against Georgia State to kind of warm the things up to take on BYU. And then if they got by BYU, they have a soft game at Chattanooga to kind of get ready for the Gators, because the Gators are going to walk a mud hole in their ass if they don't come out any better than they did, against Georgia State, and definitely against BYU. BYU is going to be a little tougher game than Georgia State was. Who knows? But like you say, you've seen some bad looks from BYU. So going forward, who knows what's going to happen with this team? There's a lot of question marks here.
Absolutely, and that's what you want when you bet. You want to find the question marks and try to pick it up and answer it. That's how you get to the money.
That's right. You know it, brother.
Let's roll on over to the next team right here. I'm excited for this team right here, and that's Kentucky. And y'all know that I had faith in this team this past week, and I caught a lot of slack for taking that 2 in the closing line. For a minute, I felt I got smacked up by Ian with the Toledo talk. But, we all cappers, and, when you study and you find an edge, you got to stick with that edge. And at the end of the day, everything that I was saying about Kentucky came out right. Like last year, they were more of a defensive team, and this year they're switching over to more of an offensive team. It all lied in the quarterback. The quarterback did a really good job, and they ended up covering in that game. So after watching them in that game, I see them flying by the top of the schedule, which is Toledo, Eastern Michigan. But they'll probably catch the L to Florida, but they'll probably play them tough. Probably be a low-scoring game right there. But then they're back at it. Mississippi State, South Carolina, Arkansas, and then they go at Georgia, which they can afford to take that loss at that time. They'll probably have 2 losses. So, this team, I think this is one of the teams that originally, according to Phil Steele, fell in that bottom tier of teams in the SEC. But I think this might be the one that'll jump out.
Really? Okay, so I got a little different view on this team, only because who they lost and the key players that they lost. they lost two big-time NFL players in the draft. They lost Josh Allen, who in my book was probably one of the top defensive talented players in college football last year. Everybody had a target on his back to go out and get this kid. And also at the running back position, Benny Snell, who's their all-time leading rusher. He's no longer with the squad. But the other thing, the other thing they have, they got a junior quarterback, Terry Wilson. He comes back for him. That's a positive note, and he'll need to step up in that role and look for more balanced attack. On the running back side. With AJ Posse, who's a junior running back. He was averaging a nice look. Probably not in a cleanup role, but in a secondary role behind Snell, 6.2 yards a carry. And last year, I think he had. He averaged he only had 360 yards, I want to say, but he didn't get a lot of playing time behind Snell, so he's going to have to step up. And then also on the defensive side, they lose like I was telling you, Josh Allen, but they had that bend that don't break mentality. They gave up yardage, but they only allowed 17 points a game roughly. But a lot of that's got to do with Allen too, but he's gone. So we'll see how they handle that. They got 4 coming back on defense, 4 on offense. So they're going to be real light there. And that's probably why Phil Steele thinks, about what's going to happen with them. So the coaches are going to definitely have their work cut out for them. They do have some nice junior and senior players coming back, but they don't have the starters in place there. So it's just going to probably be a sell team for me. But you might get some value, like you say, if you like them. If they're like a team that you're liking a little bit, you're definitely going to get some value there just based on the hard numbers that they lost and the returning starters that they're not bringing back.
Now, I could be wrong, BigRagoo, but I could be right. But missing Benny Snell and all the people that they lost didn't truly affect the team overall. The defense is still pretty stout. They have a little more give than they had before. Like I said, they're not going to do the 16 points a game like they held teams last year. Right. They're going to give up a little more. But if you watch the game, they totally switched over to a more pass-heavy offense.
Okay,
and it's working for them because the quarterback, he's pretty mobile. He can throw the ball on the run, and they got some decent receivers. That, like I said, the receiving core was the unused bit from last year because they ran the ball so well. They didn't even use that wide receiver core, so none of them went anywhere. They all came back. They gelled up a little more, and they caught some good passes, made some good connections. And another thing that I loved about the team, and I spoke about this before earlier today, is they were met with adversity. Toledo got off to a nice lead on them, and they were able to settle down, do some things right, and come back with a cover. You know what I'm saying? And that was by 12 points. That was big time. That was big time work right there. Like I said, we thought, I thought initially too, that this Kentucky team last year was just a Cinderella team, but this might be the beginning stones to a tall wall. And because once the organization gets behind the team and the team starts playing good, they're going to get them what they need. And these teams are excited. They're still excited to play. They still got good defense. They went, switching over from a run heavy offense that they had last year is rare. The pass offense that they're running right now is, contemporary according to the market in college football. So I think this team is there to compete. 10-3 last year. They could definitely do that again this year. Like I said, if they just give up against in the schedule wise against Florida and Georgia, pretty much everybody else on their schedule is absolutely beatable. So they may be looking at a 2-loss season.
Yeah, a lot of the pundits have them, like you said. Steele has them down. Athlon Sports has them down. Those are like your 2 top publications. But from the outside looking in, like you say, and I'm not questioning the talent level. It's definitely some key marquee players that they did lose in the draft. Those are big losses for them. But like you say, the job of the coaches to come in there and do what they do with the talent they have available, and they do have some guys waiting in the wings, so to speak, with some good experience and maybe not returning starters, but overall coachability and talent-wise, it looks like they did step right up into that role, like you say, with that W that they pulled off, coming from behind, getting the cover done, and it's going to be a value team without question.
Absolutely, and I get that out of my Notre Dame book as well, especially when you have a lot of players going pro like that. Because, for example, Jerry Tillery, he was roommates when they did the big thing on Notre Dame in the beginning season. About who he roommated with, like the guy he roommated with became his mentor, kind of. The guy moved on to the NFL and left it over for Tillery. Now Tillery's in the NFL as well, so we can't knock the fact that if they were able to have players that was good enough to go to the NFL, maybe they left an imprint with the underclassmen and they could carry the torch. So if I had to take a chance with a team on the bottom tier, I don't know. Only reason they're on the bottom tier is because that's what everybody's rating them right now. And
right.
I follow Phil Steele for a long time. There's stuff that he's really, really good at, and there's stuff that is so-so. And I don't know. I think they might have a bad read on Kentucky. I hope the line setters decided on their side, and I get to cash more money with them.
There you go. Well, hey, you take it for what it's worth, and you do your due diligence, and you're able to take advantage of those spots where they kind of leave it soft for this team and step right up and cash big on them.
Absolutely. So let's move over into this last final team of this Eastern Conference over here in the SEC. Let me switch us back to normal. And this is Vanderbilt. Now, we spoke early this morning, BigRagoo, that we was going to have a conversation on this on the show because, good old Vanderbilt. Louisville. I'm sorry. I'm on Vanderbilt or Louisville? I'm on Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah. I'm all mixed up.
That's all right. It don't matter. We're going to hash it out no matter what it is.
But we got to get to Louisville, so let's go through Vanderbilt. But not much to say about the Vanderbilt team. Right there next to Arkansas, bottom tier team. Georgia beat the brakes off of them, and I don't know. It's not. Let's take a look a little further into it. We got a 7 back on offense, 5 on defense. Was a 6-year coach right here.
Yeah, Derek Mason.
They got some issues over here at quarterback, which they've tried to seal up with a graduate transfer, like all the other teams are doing. They got a nice coming back with the running game. And from the little film that I watched the Georgia, let me bring up some film too. From the little film that I watched the Georgia and the Vanderbilt game, they looked at active on the run side, But you sometimes you have a team that can do one thing, and that happens a lot with our military schools. They can do one thing really well, but at the end of the day, they just can't put the whole game together. So if you're watching it for the highlights and stuff like that, you'll see them make good plays. You'll see a team that looks like, oh, this team should be so much better than their record reflects and stuff like that. And I think Vanderbilt just falls right in that category on this bottom tier of this SEC.
Yeah, you know why they do? Because the coaching staff is a very disciplinarian type of team that they put together every year. It's a respectful team. It's a bunch of kids that are very, very athletically possessive, but they're academically smart too. So Vanderbilt is kind of like Duke and Stanford. They fall in that category school-wise. So when you get those type of players, they're going to buy into the coach's system. So they might not be the most overall talented players, but they're going to do it by the book, and they're going to go out and put their heart and soul into the program, and they're going to go out and leave it on the field. So that I respect a whole lot. I mean, they did lose Kyle Shermer, who's his dad is the coach of the Giants. He's a former Minnesota offensive coordinator. So, he was a disciplinarian, but and it's going to be hard to replace him because he's the all-time leader quarterback in Vanderbilt history. So now saying that he's gone, they ranked 10th last year, 68th overall, averaging 28 points a game, 411 yards a game, total offense, that puts them like 8th in conference, 59th overall. Not that great, but not terribly bad, And they bring, like you said, they bring in graduate transfer Riley Neal from Ball State. So not a bad passing offense. They're going to have a lot of returners here. The skill positions, they bring back a guy named Jarrett Pickney, senior. He's most in the SEC, averaging 15.5 yards a catch. So they're going to have some weapons to use. So this might be one of those teams, like you say, even though it's a bottom-rung team, they're going to get some good looks and get some opportunities to put points on the board. And, you probably get some good betting opportunities with this team too, because they might be undervalued, like you like to say. So that being said, I'm not going to shy away from a team like Vanderbilt because they're well coached. They're going to be undervalued, and at the same time, you probably get some opportunities to take some plus money with this team.
Absolutely, and we can't really judge them too bad off of the Georgia game. We already spoke. Georgia is a well-oiled machine, so I can't hold that one against them. But and the line setters look like they didn't hold it against them either, because this week they're going into Purdue at +8, which might be one of those value spots that you talk about. Purdue's coming off a loss. Purdue did some things good. They did some things bad. Vanderbilt, like you said, they play smart. They play disciplined. They might be able to cover that 8. But we'll talk about that on the Boss and the Sauce show this week. Make sure y'all tune in. That comes on Thursdays, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 9 p.m. Eastern. But not much more for me to say on the Vanderbilt team right here. One of those teams, like I like the team, like, I respect the team, but not one of those teams that's moving in the right direction for me.
Yeah, 10-4. That's the truth too. Like you're probably gonna get better looks on offense than you will on defense. They might have some defensive struggles. What was the score for this game last year against Georgia? Even though Georgia, we know they're a up-tempo, high-power offense. I was just curiosity. What was the final number against
last year? They were at Georgia.
The first week, what was the final score of that Georgia game?
I believe it was 55-6.
Oh shit. Okay, well, you know what? They stomped a mud hole in their ass too, but that's Georgia though. We'll see what Purdue does.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It was 30-6.
30. Well, you know what?
Yeah,
I respect that. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a big time difference.
That's a big difference.
You're only putting what? Like 7, a little better than a touchdown and a quarter. So that's respectable there. Offensively, Georgia's defense is pretty good. So, and that game, where was that game? That game was played at home for Vandy too, right? They played that game at home.
Yeah, they played it at home.
Okay, that's the first game. So I'm not going to hold that against them. We'll see what they do on the road against Purdue this week. And then they got to take on LSU the week after that. So they got 2 real tough looks at home. Start out with Georgia, and then they got to take on LSU. So that's going to make this team, when you look at a team like this that takes those tough losses at home and then they go on the road and they play tough games, you look for a team like this later in the season. And this is coming from a seasoned, vet that put some action down in his lifetime. You look for a team like this later in the season to bet on, okay? That's what you're going to look at. But you're going to find some spots along the way that they're going to be able to probably get some value with, but this is definitely going to be a play-on team for me later in the season. That I guarantee.
Absolutely, man. I must say it's always a pleasure working with you, BigRagoo, because our spots just match up so well. Sometimes when I'm totally off, you totally spot on, and
right.
I follow you on that. And like I said on Closing Line, I don't really like taking underdogs unless I feel that they can win the game outright. And if they play in Purdue next week with the 8 points, they might be a live dog then, as early as this early in the season.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's a good spot. I agree with you. I agree with you 110% right there. So we'll be looking at that, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it upcoming week, when we sit down on the Boss and the Sauce show. Let's clue the people in when they're going to see us next time, DJ. When's that next look for us online? When we coming back?
The Boss and the Sauce show comes in on Thursday, and every Thursday until the end of the season, the Boss and the Sauce show, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Tune in. Make sure you have some comments, some questions. And look here, if there's a game you want us to cover or something you want us to mention, just let us know in the comments on this video or any video, and we'll try to see if we can put that in the works for you. We're always open to helping people out, and we pride ourselves in transparency, and we're gonna be transparent. You guys are gonna see everything, from top to bottom, boss in the sauce. You'll see us on the closing line. You'll also see us hanging out with the committee and all of our friends on the Who-Bangin show on Friday. But that's it right there, man. Not much more I can tell you. At this point, the season is moving forward. You gotta hop on board and hang with us. This is what we do. We just getting started. We're not even breaking our first win yet.
Oh, we're breaking some wins. Maybe not the win, but we're definitely gonna be breaking some W's and some wins. So, with that being said, you know what, DJ? Where are we gonna meet up next? I'm gonna see you where?
Oh, I'm gonna see you at the window.
I'm gonna see you at the window, and we're gonna be cashing those tickets. So, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you Thursday night.
Absolutely. Tune in. We out.